pretty good scene. Like, we're pretty good. We could. You wouldn't like he was encouraging you. Okay.
And it's, I mean, the guys are really good at preservation.
I didn't go to this one. Student life.
My father published a lot of books in his life on different sort of geographic areas of birds. So he did birds of the West Coast, birds of the Northern Forest, birds of the Eastern Forest, and they were sort of bird reference books. But after he passed away, I wanted to do something that would bring his whole career together and talk actually about his artwork as opposed to the birds in the artwork. And so the publisher that we've worked with for years on producing calendars of his work offered to do it, and I just took the opportunity. So I was able to borrow an archive of his work that a friend of ours had who was the daughter of his agent, and reorganize the archive and sort of chronologically take stock of what he had made. And then I didn't want to write a book, I wanted it to be focused on the images. So I asked several of his friends and colleagues to write on different aspects of the work and on their experience of him as an artist. And that was incredibly fun for me, getting to read these essays coming back from people from different perspectives, and really allowed me to learn a lot about my father. And also just putting all the artwork together and arranging it allowed me to take stock of his work and his process and learn a lot about how he operated. You know, I wasn't familiar with the sort of volume of work he produced as a young artist. He produced 50 paintings a year for years. It was just incredible. I don't understand really how he did it, and he would often repeat images. So he would go back to the same bird with the same motif over years. So it made me realize sort of how specific and acute his memories were. So because he didn't work from photographs, he worked from just observing birds in nature and then from looking at preserved dead bird specimens. And so when I realized that he would repeat these motifs, it meant, I guess, to me that he had seen something in the field and it had made such an impression that he could go back to that memory and work from that memory for years, which is incredible to me. What else? I don't know. It means a lot to me. I learned a lot about him. I learned a lot about his work, and I hope he would approve of this book. I think it's really neat. It's really neat to sort of bring it all together. As an artist myself, it was very interesting in terms of trying to understand his influence on my work and come to terms with his influence on my work. I'm much more comfortable with that now, and having my paintings in the same room as his, I'm much more comfortable with. A few years ago, I know I wasn't, and I guess it's allowed me to sort of work through his death a little bit and come to terms with that. So all in all, it's been an incredibly rewarding project. I'm very excited to share it with all of his supporters. I was always interested in painting and drawing, so when I finished high school, I decided to go to art college, and he was incredibly supportive of that. He didn't go to art college. He was self-taught, but he very much encouraged me to. I think he felt that, not that he had missed out, but he was very aware of how great an art education can be. So I went off to art school in Toronto, and then I came back when I was finished, and we had a year together where we were both making work. I was working in his old studio up the street from his house, and he was working at home. And he was always encouraging to me as a young artist, but he didn't push me to make art, and he didn't interfere. He just encouraged me. But when I had finished school and I'd chosen to work in watercolor, I think he felt like I was set on my course enough that we could talk about it and it wouldn't be too much of an interference. So it was fantastic. For about a year and a half, I would make a painting and then I would put it in the car and I'd drive it down and show him, and he would sort of critique it for me, and he would point out the things he thought weren't working, and I learned an immense amount from him. So up until that point, he hadn't really been a teacher, but we had a lovely sort of 18 months of rapport in that way. and was enormously helpful. It's such an incredible eye and sense of design and color, and yeah, really a master draftsman. So I feel very lucky to have had him there for that.
So this is the first time kind of you show together?
No, during that year we had a show together, which I was very nervous about. I didn't want to do it. I thought it, at this point it was his very late career as this master artist, and I was just beginning, and I thought I would embarrass him. But he wanted to do it, and we did, and people were very encouraging. It was great. It was a great experience, and I'm glad we did it. And we had a lot of fun, but it was terrifying. I thought, like, what could be worse than being like compared to this guy? He's just, but it was great. It was. I feel like once I did that show, I could get through any show without being too nervous. No other show I don't think will be as meaningful to me as that. So it was great. Yeah.
So today's show is kind of a different way, but
it's different. It's a nice feeling. It's not as stressful. It feels like it's come full circle in a nice way because we're celebrating this book at the same time, and I am much more comfortable with his influence on me having done this book, and yeah, it's just a very, very warm, nice feeling. Having a parent as an artist can be a little oppressive, probably. He wasn't personally, but just the fact that they're there, it can be. And that's probably why I chose to go to art college across the other side of the country. I didn't want to go to school in Victoria because I didn't want to be associated with his name at the beginning. And I'm glad I did that. I think probably some of my teachers in Toronto knew who my father was, but they were kind enough not to bring it up. But I don't know. I was so close with my father. I think that sort of patriarchal, oppressive thing that can happen with people, it is just not an issue for us. He was not an overbearing person, and I just feel lucky to have had someone to confer with and to know a little bit about the art world and about what an artist does going into it. I feel like I've had a huge advantage in that way. It hasn't been a negative thing. I've had a busy year so far. I've had a few shows this spring, and I just opened a show in Toronto last week, which will be my last show before I go back to school. I'm going to start graduate studies in September in the US, so I won't be exhibiting for 2 years, but I'll be making lots of work, I'm sure. So this is sort of, in a way, this is a nice ending to the last few years of working, and now I can go off and start something new.